Donald Trump storming out of a New York courtroom this morning. I want to go to Blake Eason at the WKRN.com alert desk. Blake.
Hey, good morning to you, Mark. Yeah, this was during closing arguments at his defamation trial. But for the former president, he was done. Take a look at this video here. It's earlier this morning as Trump left for court. The walkout came in court as a lawyer for writer E. Jean Carroll was making a closing argument. The attorney urged the jury to award the writer at least $24 million for, quote, a storm of hate caused by the former president.
Hello, everyone. Lauren Brooke is here right now. Federal judges are cautioning Trump's attorneys the next occasion they step out of line, they'll go to prison. Not fines or warnings, but handcuffs plus a holding cell.
Carroll is seeking more than $10 million in damages from the former president. And before the jury walked in, there's a lot going on. The judge reminded everyone that they have to stay quiet during closings, saying this, quote, there are to be no interruptions by anybody, no audible comments by anybody else. And now Trump, we know, has walked out.
This stunning confrontation between the judiciary plus a former president's legal team is unfolding in real time across multiple courtrooms. Let me set the scene for you because the atmosphere in these courtrooms has become absolutely electric. For years, Trump's legal strategy has followed a predictable design. Push every boundary, test every limit, file every conceivable motion regardless of merit, make inflammatory statements to the press.
Well, Donald Trump is now back in the room and he is seated at the defense table as his attorney, Alina Habba, is giving her closings. And essentially what they are trying to do is tell the jury that what E. Jean Carroll experienced, the threats, the fear, the harassment online to her life, that she feared for her life, was not a result of the statements that Donald Trump made about her in 2019.
Violate gag orders, bring conspiracy theories into proceedings, turn every courtroom into a political rally. Plus, for years, judges tolerated it. They issued warnings, they imposed small fines, they scolded attorneys, plus told them to behave better, but they didn't really enforce serious consequences. They didn't drop the hammer. That era is over. Now, we're watching judges collectively lose their patience. We're watching them reach a breaking point where they've decided the normal tools of judicial discipline, fines, sanctions, referrals to bar associations aren't working. They're not enough because Trump's team has shown time again they don't care about fines. They fundraise off them. They wear sanctions like badges of honor. They turn every punishment into a political talking point about how the system is rigged versus them.
The case has been brought by New York Attorney General Letitia James, and she argues that the former president and his associates at the Trump Organization engaged in a decades-long pattern of inflating the assets of various real estate properties and programs that they were running here in the city, and that they were doing so that banks would look at those assets, see those inflated values, and give them bigger loans and better rates than they would have. The Attorney General and her team have argued that these quote-unquote ill-gotten gains netted the Trump Organization about $250 million, and that he needs to be punished for that.
So the judges are going nuclear. Let me take you inside Judge Tanya Chutkan's courtroom for a moment because what occurred there is absolutely emblematic of this broader shift. She's overseeing the federal election interference case, plus she had issued a gag order, a standard legal tool designed to prevent parties from making public statements that could intimidate witnesses, prejudice potential jurors, or otherwise undermine the fair administration of justice. Trump violated that order not once, not twice, repeatedly. He'd go on social media, he'd hold press conferences, he'd attack prosecutors, witnesses, court staff. He'd do it with a smile, seemingly confident nothing serious would occur.
The attorney urged the jury to award the writer at least $24 million for, quote, a storm of hate caused by the former president. As she addressed the jury, Trump rose from his seat and walked out. The unexpected exit prompted the judge to say the record will reflect that Mr. Trump just rose and walked out of the courtroom, end quote. The former president did not return.
Judge Chutkan reinstated that gag order, but she didn't do it quietly. She didn't do it with a gentle reminder. She examined the defense team, plus stated, in language that was measured but unmistakably stern, she would take whatever measures are necessary to safeguard the integrity of these proceedings, whatever measures are necessary. That's judicial speak for, I don't care who your client is, I don't care what political position he holds, I don't care how many followers he has on social media. If you violate this order again, you're examining contempt charges, plus contempt can mean prison. She specifically cautioned versus public statements targeting witnesses, prosecutors, or court staff, exactly the kind of statements Trump had been making constantly. Plus, she made it crystal clear the next violation would trigger consequences that couldn't get ignored, couldn't get fundraised off, couldn't get spun as a victory. Now, let me take you across town to Judge Juan Merchan's courtroom in New York, where the civil fraud trial was unfolding. Same narrative, different judge, different case, same conclusion. Merchan had imposed fines on Trump for gag order violations, small fines initially, then larger ones. Plus, Trump just kept violating the orders anyway. The fines weren't working, they were barely a speed bump. So, Merchan performed something that made every attorney in that courtroom sit up straight. He publicly threatened prison time. He stated the next violation wouldn't result in another fine. It would result in actual incarceration. Plus, here's where it gets even more intense. Merchan didn't just threaten Trump with prison. He specifically noted anyone who helps Trump violate the gag order, including his attorneys, could face consequences too. That means if a lawyer helps craft a statement crossing the line, if they advise Trump it's okay to attack a witness, if they facilitate the violation in any way, they personally could be examining a prison cell. Think about what that does to the psychology inside a legal team. Normally, attorneys possess a lot of protection. Courts are reluctant to sanction lawyers too harshly because it could interfere with the attorney-client relationship plus a defendant's right to counsel. But judges are currently stating, essentially, we grasp that. We respect that, but there are limits. Plus, if you're actively helping your client obstruct justice or violate court orders, those protections exit the window. You will face consequences. You will go to prison. This isn't occurring in just one or two courtrooms. Federal judges in Washington, D.C., overseeing the Capitol riot cases, have been issuing stern contempt cautions to Trump-allied lawyers who keep trying to relitigate the 2020 election. They keep bringing conspiracy theories into courtrooms, claims about stolen elections, about false flag operations, about deep state plots. Plus, judges are informing them, stop. This is a criminal trial about specific charges. We're not here to debate election fraud conspiracy theories. Those arguments are irrelevant. They're disruptive. Plus, if you keep making them, you will get sanctioned. When the attorneys kept doing it anyway, because that's what Trump's legal team does, they keep pushing. Judges started hitting them with fines, plus threatening more serious consequences, including potential prison time for contempt, because judges view this behavior as fundamentally disrespectful to the court. It's an attempt to hijack the legal process for political purposes, to turn courtrooms into stages for political messaging, rather than venues for determining guilt or innocence based on evidence plus law. Plus, the judges are stating, not in my courtroom. You want to make political arguments? Go do it on cable news, go do it on social media, go do it on the floor of Congress. But in my courtroom, you follow the rules of evidence plus procedure. You stick to legal arguments relevant to the charges. Anything else is contempt, plus contempt can mean prison. So what we're witnessing is unprecedented. Multiple judges across multiple cases, all simultaneously reaching their breaking point with Trump's legal team, all threatening prison time for attorneys who continue to disrupt proceedings, violate orders, or abuse the legal process. It's a massive escalation, plus it sends a message that couldn't get clearer. Nobody is above the law, not Trump, not his attorneys, not anybody. If you violate court orders, if you show contempt for the judicial process, you're going to prison. Period. Now, let me guide you through exactly what kinds of behavior have brought us to this crisis point, because grasping the design helps explain why judges have finally snapped. This didn't come from nowhere. It's been building for months, years really. Plus, the specific conduct triggering these prison threats falls into several distinct categories any practicing attorney should recognize as way outside the bounds of normal legal advocacy. First plus most obvious are the gag order violations. Let me explain what a gag order actually is for anybody who might not know. When a judge issues a gag order, they're stating the parties in a case cannot make certain public statements. Usually, these orders are designed to prevent people from intimidating witnesses, prejudicing potential jurors, or otherwise interfering with the fair administration of justice. They're not controversial. They're standard practice in high-profile cases. Every attorney knows they exist, plus knows they have to follow them. But Trump's team has treated gag orders like suggestions rather than commands. In case after case, Trump would go on social media or hold a press conference, plus directly attack people involved in the proceedings. He'd call prosecutors corrupt. He'd suggest witnesses were lying. He'd imply court staff were portion of some conspiracy against him. Plus, his attorneys often facilitated this. They'd help craft the statements. They'd make similar statements themselves. They'd argue in court the gag orders didn't really apply or were unconstitutional. Plus, judges tried to handle it the normal way. They'd issue warnings. They'd state, please stop doing this. When that didn't work, they'd impose small fines. When that didn't work, they'd impose larger fines. But nothing worked because Trump's team doesn't care about fines. They pay them plus move on. They fundraise off them, telling supporters the fines prove they're getting persecuted. The normal tools of judicial discipline turned out to be completely inadequate. That's why we've witnessed this escalation to prison threats. Judge Chutkan's reinstatement of the gag order in the federal election case is the perfect example. She didn't just state, please follow the rules this occasion. She stated, I will take whatever measures are necessary to protect the integrity of these proceedings. Plus, she made it clear those measures could include contempt charges plus incarceration. The next violation triggers the most serious response available. Then there's the design of frivolous motions plus delay tactics. Trump's legal team has mastered the art of filing motion after motion after motion, not because any of those motions possess legal merit, but because they're trying to slow everything down. They're trying to exhaust the patience of the court plus the prosecution. They're trying to run out the clock. They file motions to dismiss on every conceivable ground. They appeal every adverse ruling, even the ones that are obviously correct. They request delays constantly. They challenge the venue. They challenge jury selection. They challenge the judge. They challenge the charges themselves. Now examine, some of this is normal. Defense attorneys are supposed to explore every possible avenue for defending their client. That's zealous advocacy, plus it's protected. But there's a line between zealous advocacy plus abusing the legal process, plus judges are increasingly concluding Trump's attorneys have crossed that line plus kept running. They're not filing these motions because they genuinely hold they possess merit. They're filing them because they want to gum up the works, create chaos, plus delay the inevitable for as long as possible. Judges are responding by sanctioning the attorneys, denying the motions with prejudice, plus cautioning continued abuse will result in more serious consequences, including contempt charges. In some cases, judges have threatened to remove attorneys from cases entirely if they keep filing frivolous motions. That's a nuclear option because it leaves the defendant scrambling to find fresh counsel in the middle of proceedings. Then there's the conspiracy theory problem, plus this one has been particularly acute in the Capitol riot cases, plus the election interference case. Trump's attorneys have repeatedly tried to introduce conspiracy theories into courtroom arguments. They've claimed the 2020 election was stolen. They've claimed January 6th was a false flag operation. They've claimed deep state actors are persecuting Trump. Plus, they're not just making these arguments in press conferences or on friendly media outlets. They're trying to make them in actual court filings, plus courtroom arguments. Plus, judges possess stated absolutely not. This is a criminal trial. We're here to determine whether specific laws were violated. We're not here to debate conspiracy theories about stolen elections or deep state plots. Those arguments are irrelevant to the charges. They're disruptive to the proceedings. Stop making them or face sanctions. But Trump's attorneys keep pushing. They keep trying to sneak these arguments in. They keep trying to turn the trial into a referendum on the 2020 election or on political persecution. Plus, judges are getting increasingly angry about it because it shows a fundamental disrespect for the court plus the legal process. It shows attorneys more interested in political theater than in actually defending their client within the bounds of the law. Federal judges in D.C. have been particularly aggressive about shutting this down. They've issued contempt cautions. They've fined attorneys. They've threatened to remove attorneys from cases. Plus, they've made it very clear the next attorney crossing this line is facing serious sanctions, including potential prison time for contempt, because judges view this as an attempt to hijack the legal process for political purposes, to turn courtrooms into stages for political messaging, rather than venues for determining guilt or innocence based on evidence plus law. Plus, here's what renders all of this so significant. Judges are currently threatening not just fines or professional sanctions, but actual prison time. That's a massive escalation because historically, courts have been extremely reluctant to prison attorneys for contempt. They'll impose fines, they'll issue professional sanctions, they might refer attorneys to bar associations for discipline that could take years to play out, but actually jailing an attorney during proceedings, that's rare. Very rare, because it raises concerns about interfering with the defendant's right to counsel, plus because it can hold a chilling effect on zealous advocacy. But we've reached a point where judges are concluding the normal sanctions aren't working. Fines don't matter because Trump just pays them or fundraises off them. Professional sanctions don't matter because Trump's attorneys seem to view getting sanctioned as a badge of honor, proving they're fighting the system. So judges are going to the nuclear option. They're threatening actual incarceration because that's something that can't get ignored or spun as a victory. If you're sitting in a prison cell for contempt of court, there's no way to pretend that's a win. There's no way to fundraise off it or claim it shows you're a fighter. It's just a straightforward consequence everyone wants to avoid. Judge Merchan's cautions in the New York case are particularly instructive here. He imposed multiple fines on Trump for gag order violations. Plus, when those didn't work, when Trump kept violating the order anyway, Merchan stated publicly the next violation would result in prison time, not another fine. Prison. Plus, he specifically noted he was reluctant to take that step because jailing a defendant during trial creates logistical problems, plus could get seen as prejudicial. But he stated if the violations continue, he'll possess no choice. Plus, he also made it clear anybody who aids or abets the violations, which would include attorneys who helped Trump craft statements violating the order, could face consequences too. So, Trump's lawyers are currently in a position where they have to be extremely careful about what they help their client state publicly. If they cross the line, they could personally go to prison for it. That's a huge change in the dynamic, plus it puts enormous strain on the legal team to rein Trump in. All of this is occurring versus the backdrop of multiple cases proceeding simultaneously. Trump is facing criminal charges in multiple jurisdictions. He's dealing with civil cases. He's fighting appeals. Plus, in each of these proceedings, judges are reaching similar conclusions about his legal team's behavior. It's disruptive. It's disrespectful. It crosses the line from zealous advocacy into abusive process. Plus, they're all responding in similar ways, reinstating gag orders, imposing sanctions, threatening contempt charges, cautioning about prison time. It's like the entire judicial system has collectively decided enough is enough. That Trump plus his attorneys need to commence following the identical rules as everyone else. Plus, if they won't do it voluntarily, courts will enforce compliance through the most serious sanctions available, including incarceration. Now, let me step back plus paint the full portrait of what this all means, because the implications extend far beyond just a few angry judges or a few scared attorneys. We are witnessing something genuinely historic, a moment where the judicial branch is drawing a line in the sand, plus stating zero amount of political strain, zero amount of public posturing, plus zero amount of legal gamesmanship will get permitted to undermine the integrity of U.S. courtrooms. Think about the strategic dilemma this creates for Trump plus his legal team. Their entire approach has gotten built on pushing boundaries plus testing limits, on creating chaos plus delay, on turning legal proceedings into political theater. That strategy worked for a long time because judges were patient, they gave warnings, they imposed small fines, they tried to keep proceedings moving without escalating to the most extreme sanctions. But now, judges are stating, if you keep doing that, you're going to prison. So, Trump's attorneys have to make a choice. Do they continue the aggressive boundary-pushing strategy, plus risk going to prison themselves? Or do they pull back, follow the rules, plus potentially face Trump's wrath for not fighting hard enough? It's a no-win situation. If they keep doing what they've been doing, they risk contempt charges plus incarceration. If they change tactics plus become more conventional, Trump might fire them plus accuse them of getting weak or compromised or portion of the very system he claims is persecuting him. They're caught between a rock plus a hard place, between angry judges threatening prison on one side, plus an angry client who demands maximum aggression on the other. Plus, we're already witnessing some Trump attorneys try to thread this needle, attempting to be aggressive enough to satisfy Trump, but not so aggressive they trigger contempt charges. But that balancing act is getting harder plus harder as judges lose patience plus make their red lines clearer plus clearer. At some point, Trump's attorneys are going to have to decide whether their loyalty to their client is worth going to prison over. Plus, let me be honest with you about what I think is going to occur next. Based on Trump's history plus personality, I don't hold he's capable of backing down. He's spent his entire career in business plus politics, refusing to concede, refusing to admit defeat, refusing to follow rules he thinks don't apply to him. That design hasn't altered just because he's facing federal judges with the authority to incarcerate. If anything, the strain might render him double down, push harder, test the limits even more aggressively. That means we're probably going to witness actual contempt charges at some point. We're probably going to witness an attorney get jailed for violating a court order. We might even witness Trump himself get jailed for contempt because judges have drawn their lines, they've made their cautions. Plus, if those cautions get ignored, they're going to follow through with enforcement. They've painted themselves into a corner where backing down now would destroy their credibility, plus send a message their threats are empty. That would be historic. We've never witnessed a former president jailed for contempt of court during legal proceedings. We've rarely witnessed attorneys jailed for courtroom contempt in high-profile cases, but we might be heading toward both of those things occurring because the judges overseeing these cases have made it very clear they're prepared to take those steps if necessary. They view protecting the integrity of their courtrooms as more important than avoiding the political plus media firestorm that would come from jailing Trump or his attorneys. Plus, here's something that might surprise you. That's actually kind of reassuring in a weird way because it shows at least some institutions in this country are still prepared to enforce rules regardless of political strain. The judges aren't so worried about backlash, they'll permit their courtrooms to get abused. They're prepared to do their jobs even when it's difficult plus controversial. That's what judicial independence resembles in practice, not just in theory, but it also sets up another potential constitutional crisis. What occurs if a judge commands Trump jailed for contempt plus Trump refuses to comply? What if he claims the order is illegitimate, plus tries to employ whatever remaining powers or influence he has to resist enforcement? What if his supporters take to the streets? What if the marshals have to physically remove him from a courtroom? These are scenarios that could create serious instability, plus conflict between branches of government. Plus, nobody really knows how they would play out because we've never been in this situation before. Or what if Trump's attorneys get jailed, plus Trump claims it's political persecution, plus uses it to rally his supporters? That's almost certainly going to occur. He'll go on social media, he'll hold press conferences, he'll inform his followers the system is corrupt, the judges are portion of a conspiracy, his lawyers are martyrs for the cause. The fundraising appeals will go out within hours. The rhetoric will escalate. The attacks on the judiciary will intensify. We're in uncharted territory. The decisions made in the coming weeks plus months could hold profound consequences for the separation of powers, the independence of the judiciary, plus the rule of law in America. Because ultimately, this is about whether courts can enforce their orders versus everyone, including powerful political figures plus their attorneys. Whether judges possess the authority to demand compliance with courtroom rules plus impose sanctions, including prison time, when those rules get violated. Whether the legal system can function properly when one party is actively trying to undermine plus delegitimize it. These are fundamental inquiries about how our system of government works, plus they're getting tested currently in real time in courtrooms across the country, with judges threatening prison time for Trump's attorneys, with Trump facing potential contempt charges in multiple cases, with the whole legal system getting stressed in manners it's never gotten stressed before. Let me depart you with a final thought about what this moment truly represents. What we're examining isn't just about Donald Trump. It isn't just about his attorneys. It's about whether the U.S. legal system holds the backbone to enforce its own rules versus someone who has made a career out of breaking them without consequences. It's about whether judges will stand up for the integrity of their courtrooms when powerful interests try to turn those courtrooms into circuses. It's about whether the rule of law still means something in this country. For a long time, there was reason to doubt. Trump faced consequences so rarely it seemed like he truly might be untouchable. Every investigation seemed to finish without charges. Every lawsuit seemed to settle or get dismissed. Every ethical violation seemed to get swept under the rug. He bragged about standing in the middle of Fifth Avenue plus shooting somebody without losing voters, plus he wasn't entirely incorrect. The normal rules didn't seem to apply to him. But the judges are stating something different now. They're stating in their courtrooms the rules do apply, that contempt of court is contempt of court, regardless of who you are or what office you once held, that attorneys who abuse the legal process will face consequences, that gag orders mean something, that you can't turn a trial into a political rally just because you possess a large platform. Plus, they're backing up those words with the most serious threat a judge can make: prison time. Not a fine, not a reprimand, not a referral to a bar association that might take years to act. Prison, as in handcuffs, as in a holding cell, as in a loss of liberty. That's either really encouraging if you hold in the rule of law, or really terrifying if you're Trump or one of his attorneys, because the threats are real, the consequences are serious. Plus, judges are making it very clear they're prepared to follow through. We might be approaching a moment where somebody actually goes to prison, where a judge commands Trump or one of his attorneys taken into custody for contempt. Plus, if that occurs, all bets are off in terms of what comes next. We'll be in completely uncharted constitutional territory with zero clear roadmap for how to handle the fallout. The political system will get tested, the media will go into overdrive, the public will get divided. Plus, through it all, the judges will have to stand by their decisions, enforce their orders, plus defend the integrity of their courtrooms versus attacks from all sides. This narrative is huge. Multiple federal judges threatening Trump's attorneys with prison, gag orders getting reinstated with serious enforcement mechanisms, contempt cautions getting issued explicitly plus publicly, the whole judicial system drawing lines plus stating cross them plus face immediate consequences, including incarceration. It's unprecedented. It's a massive shift in how these cases are getting handled, plus it signals judges have had enough, that they're finished tolerating behavior that would get anybody else held in contempt instantly, that they're prepared to enforce the rules equally, regardless of who you are or what political position you hold. The coming weeks plus months will tell us whether this moment leads to actual prison time or whether the threats alone are enough to alter behavior. Either way, something fundamental has shifted. The patience of the judiciary has run out. The era of tolerating courtroom chaos is over. Plus, everyone involved in these cases, Trump, his attorneys, the prosecutors, the judges themselves, now has to navigate a landscape where the ultimate sanction is no longer theoretical. It's real. It's on the table. Plus, it's coming for somebody